my good day and welcome everyone. I'm Craig Bleakley, Safety Risk Specialist here at ecoPortal. It's awesome to have you here today. If you've joined us in the past, it is great to have you back. In today's session, a very sought after one, we'll explore a key theme across public-facing workplaces: how to protect both staff and customers from the risks of aggression and crime. In industries like retail, hospitality, healthcare, transport, and others, the threat of violence has evolved beyond just isolated incidents. Gang-related attacks now and growing incidents of staff-targeted abuse are now shaping safety strategies across the globe. So, to share the latest best practices and protocols for managing these risks, we're really pleased to welcome Mike Plunkett, who is the Head of Health and Safety at Kmart Target. Mike will draw on insights from recent incidents and their lessons to explore the real-world obstacles that frontline teams face and how employers can respond with smarter, safer solutions. So, without further ado, it is my great pleasure to introduce today's speaker. The Head of Health and Safety at Kmart Target, Mike Plunkett, has over 16 years in risk management across retail, warehousing, logistics, construction, and corporate head offices. His background covers, and it's quite lengthy, strategic planning, stakeholder engagement, mental health and well-being initiatives, executive board and stakeholder reporting, and risk management audits. You're a busy man, Mike. It's wonderful to have you join us here today. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, Craig, and thank you for everyone who's dialed in to listen to us on such a topic that is front of mind for all of us, particularly us retailers.
Hey, so let's jump in and let's hit some stats and get some context as to what is going on. So, Mike, over 90% of retailers in New Zealand report experiencing crime every year. And we know in Australia, retail crime involving weapons is up 66%. And in England and Wales, shoplifting offences hit a record high last year. So from your perspective, why are we seeing this growing wave of violence across retail and other public facing industries? What's driving this increase?
It's a tough question to answer, right? And I don't think there's a silver bullet that is the one response for one business or site. I reflect on, where I don't want to say the C word, but COVID, we've got an increased cost of living around the world, interest rates, and then there's some community impacts, right? Like drug, alcohol, and homelessness, and the ongoing impacts of mental health in the community. I think about Kmart and Target. Our vision is to make every day brighter for our customers, and this translates, generally speaking, to everyday low prices that our customers love. We're a high volume, low cost model operator. So generally we're offering good products at a good price to our customers. But what we're seeing is increased customer threatening situations in our business and also increasing shrink or stock loss. So we're also seeing some tension points when it comes to the government emergency services. So there is a natural tension. We've got high volume of customer threatening situations that not every emergency service can respond to. I would love to see everyone responded to, but that's not practical, right? But I think what we're seeing across now, particularly in Australia and New Zealand, is the retailers really trying to strengthen, harden stores from a physical perspective, but then overlay that with some basic controls and training to harden and protect our teams.
Yeah. I'm going straight off script already because this is such a fascinating question as to the why and what else is driving this. Are you seeing a lot more? We don't want to get into generational stereotypes, but are there any changes in terms of entitlement or as different generations do come through? Are there any particular specific target of generations that you see more prevalent that are the ones causing the issues in your stores? And is there any reasons that you might think as to what might be driving that mentality, that behavior?
Yeah, it's a good question. Mixed answer, right? So depending on the location of our box or our stores, will depend on the type of CTS risk event that we've got. So in certain circumstances, there it might be a drug, alcohol, or homeless problem. And in other areas, it might be a youth problem. And it's fascinating to think you overlay that with some of the geographical risks that we've got. Any stores near a train line will generally
Yep.
see
Yep.
there's a risk of youth crime that will get between stores and using trains as the mode of transport.
Yeah, interesting. So just to confirm, CTS, you use it as an acronym. What does CTS refer to?
Thank you for pulling me up on that. That's our acronym for all things customer threatening situations related.
Right. Okay. No, perfect. Interesting. And I think my last sort of question around this case is there I used the word entitlement before, that's not quite maybe what I was meaning. Is there a lack of or a change of mentality by these individuals that are causing these situations in your store, that there's a lack of fear, or that the lack of, they know there won't be any repercussion, and so that's driving a lot more confidence and to actually go in and cause these situations, because they know, as you mentioned before, that agencies are not going to be responding quickly. So there's a lot more just self-confidence that I'm just going to go and do this because I know I'm not going to get caught.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I'm based here in Victoria, in Melbourne, and I look at the Victorian state government. They're increasing making it difficult for repeat offenders, for those people under 16 years of age. I think that cohort that you're talking to is probably reflective of that demographic.
Mm-hmm.
Fascinating that that cohort, when they're out to cause trouble in our stores, they can be quite disruptive, and both for the physical and mental safety of our teams.
And are you finding there's a lot more group-based activity as opposed to individuals, or is, again, there's a balance, there's a big range?
Yeah, I think there's not a consistent trend. I think depending on the location of the particular store, but we are seeing youth crime is a general emerging risk for our business that we're super conscious and monitoring very closely in our statistics.
No, interesting stuff. Last year we had the tragic event at Bondi, the tragic stabbing where at Bondi Junction Shopping Centre in Australia, 6 people, tragically lost their lives in a crowded retail centre. Obviously shocked the communities locally and globally, and raised really urgent questions around public safety. How can companies reflect on events like these to assess what worked and what didn't work in their response, and then use those insights to I guess, evolve their approach to risk management?
What a tragic incident, and our thoughts go out to all the families and people involved in that incident. It was just absolutely horrific. For Kmart Group, we're seeing a continuation of events like Bondi, but not to the same risk level, right? But I would categorise them under near-miss events. For instance, we're recently seeing a spike in machete-related incidents. It's not impacting our teams or our stores directly. It's generally at the front of stores, and it's customer v another customer. But something that's really on our minds is how do we, target harden the front of our stores and make sure that our stores have got that ability to lock down really quickly in the event when we're seeing an emerging event happen out the front of our stores.
Yeah, sure.
Interesting. And I think there's some other factors which we talked to earlier, right? Like the increased cost of living. We see customers that might just need a pair of shoes, and maybe they don't have a pair of shoes on the day, and they need to go somewhere, and Kmart and Target are a great place to go get some shoes. So just that natural tension of trying to actually get a pair of shoes for them just to live their life. And we obviously need to protect our stock and people, but those sort of natural tension points as a retailer is one of those things that our frontline teams just have to deal with on a daily basis.
Yep.
Um,
so when that event happened, I'm sure all the retailers really looked at their processes. What did you guys do in that space to respond?
Well, for us, we took it as an opportunity to review and reflect. In particular, how do we lock our stores down? We found that not all our stores had quick and easy access to locking our stores down, and we rolled out a simple concept where we've got a lockbox at the front of our stores that our store management teams know the code to, and that immediately improved the lockdown response time.
Okay.
And I think if you rewound the clock 10 years ago, it was frowned upon in retail to lock your store down. You were to trade at all costs.
Yeah.
That shift in, no, we're going to protect our people first and then our stock, it's a really culture maturity step that the businesses really need to face into and make sure that we're empowering stores to lock down. The other thing I think as retailers we need to be thinking about is how do we increase the ways team members communicate with each other. At Kmart Group, we use push-to-talk radios. We've got our body-worn cameras. That the immediate speed of communication is essential in controlling those situations, right? So the other things we looked at was, and I think this was a key turning point for us, was around how do we profile our stores. So we undertook a national risk profile across, our 450 odd stores across Australia and New Zealand, and we worked out,
Yep.
what are our highest risk stores, and based on that, we created a tiered set of controls that we rolled out to stores.
Do you think other businesses, and no doubt you have cohorts and other companies that you interact with often in your sector, do you think your response was similar to what others responded to for and using that event as a trigger to do that review? And what would you
I think
potentially recommend as a more of a higher view look as to what should they be doing, other stores potentially in this space?
I think the baseline response for every retailer is we should be risk profiling our stores. We should work out who the highest risk stores are. And if you take the 80-20 rule, so 20% of your stores are going to cause 80% of your problems. If you go hard on that cohort first, you'll see a natural reduction in those events. But on the flip side, you'll see improved team member engagement and a general feeling of being safe at work as well.
Which can only be helpful.
Mm.
I was gonna come up on stage today, and this might be a good reason to ask this question. You may have seen in New Zealand in particular, there was interesting news recently about promoting, in essence, citizens arrest powers that will allow the staff to, in essence, detain a shoplifter. What were your thoughts around that as a retailer, especially as you just mentioned, providing the support to the staff member? That's not about that, is it, though? It's the complete opposite. It actually is providing the staff member the ability, the right, the confidence to actually step away and not have to escalate or interact with the situation. Would that be fair?
Yeah, I think you're on the money, Craig. Our general stance is we want to de-escalate all events that might have mental or physical harm to our team members. So a lot of our process training and equipment is designed to de-escalate as opposed to actually aggravate and engage in that sort of scenario.
Yeah. It's, I know that was a very interesting news release when that came out in New Zealand, where the vast majority of the retail staff in the world went, "This is not what we want."
No,
Hey,
I think
Mike.
you also run the risk of increasing your injury profile too, right? And
Exactly.
and as yeah, it's dangerous waters when you encourage your team members to be engaging in that behaviour.
Yeah, no, too right. So, Mike, from your experience at Kmart and the other companies you've worked with, what would you say are the real world obstacles that frontline teams face in protecting both staff and customers? And then to that, how can employers respond with smarter, safer solutions or smarter safety solutions in public facing sectors?
Well, at Kmart Group, our number one cause of customer threatening situations is antisocial behaviour and verbal assaults. So,
Okay.
an example, we have display bikes on show, and we go back to our earlier conversations around youth disruption and crime. We found a spike in kids just picking up the bikes and purposely being disruptive, riding the bikes around the store and just being chaotic. At the same time, knocking stock off our shelves and just being general nuisances, right? So for us, a quick 101 of how do you fix that? Let's and it takes away the customer experience. So we're losing that for the customer a little bit, but what we've done is lock those bikes up to the actual display unit, which customer still gets to touch feel the bike, but maybe they don't get to sort of push it around and what have you. It's probably worth noting as well that what we've found as a secret recipe is not undervaluing the concept of hiring team members that live that live in the same community as where the store's located, their ability to actually communicate and engage with those customers that potentially they might interact, live near, is valuable, right?
Yeah.
That's
Interesting.
really worth considering.
Yeah. So you've actually found that there's been some advantages for doing so in those situations potentially. And
Yeah,
you're basically saying, hey, these individuals will either not go into that store and misbehave because it's a neighbor that they'll be upsetting, or that individual will be able to proactively go up to that individual and say, hey, I know who you are. Obviously, you need to stop. And there might be a bit of respect, I guess, from that situation.
yeah, that's right. That's right.
Mm.
And it's interesting how we've had some mixed results from our body worn camera program.
Yeah.
So um, that doesn't stop CTS events, but what it does is de-escalate them very quickly in most circumstances. We've recently launched public display or television units at the front of our stores linked to our CCTV or known risk areas within stores. We're a bit too soon. We're only a few months into that program, but I'll be interested to see if that reduces the risk of CTS
Mm.
events taking place. Um,
Yep.
and then you'll see some other things that we're exploring around gates at front of store, which is a bit new for us. We're seeing in Australia in particular, a lot of the large supermarkets are moving to that model, where the gates don't let you out, they only let you in. So we're just going very slowly with that to see if that's going to work for our customer and our business.
For the body worn camera situation, and obviously there's a number of agencies that are moving to this, not just in retail, but a lot of public facing sectors. And you mentioned it's the de escalation that it's really prompting as opposed to stopping the situation in the first place. From your opinion, what is the rationale behind that? What is in the head of the perpetrator that it will change their behavior? Is it a embarrassment factor? Is it a potential prosecution factor? Like what's actually driving the change of behavior? I've always wondered what's actually the driving change of behavior state.
Yeah, I think they're very effective for customers that are not drug or alcohol impacted. So if we
Sure.
park that sort of cohort separately,
Yeah.
for the average customer that might be getting disgruntled or aggravated based on, it could be a refund or it could be just the experience they're receiving. Having see that light pop on and see potentially their face on the front of the camera, that is an immediate de-escalation point. Where we're finding the cameras aren't effective is for that cohort of drug alcohol impaired customers. They just don't
Yeah.
seem to care. So that's where we've got to rely on some of our other controls in store.
I suppose no one wants to be that viral video of the Karen in the store causing issues over a refund or a or broken something. So that's what's going sometimes through their heads. Yeah,
That's right.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but obviously with the drug and alcohol thing, that clarity of thought is not there, and the requirement's not the case. Yeah,
Yeah.
Nairi agrees as well. Fear of detection identification in the chat will be heightened. One, if the neighbour works there, but also, of course, the fear of identification in the local community chat about this person for sure.
Yeah.
In terms of any other so in terms of data that you might be collecting from this information, how important is that to be really taking a governance high level view of lots of events and using that data to drive and influence your behavior?
We are 100% data driven. So we currently lean on a platform which is a profit protection platform, right? Which is called Aura.
Mhm.
The local and state police departments link into Aura, so we're really targeting the crime element of our customer threatening situations there. So having access for police to tap into that system and connect and get a visual of potential persons of interest, I think is really effective and helps detain and potentially reduce repeat offending. When it comes to designing our annual CTS program and where we're going to invest our money, everything comes down to data. What we're hearing from the Aura platform, our incident system, and then obviously our team member feedback is essential, right?
Do you have panic buttons for staff, or some sort of hit the button and the cavalry come?
We, as a business, we used to have panic buttons. Where we found they became ineffective was it would link into a security company that would then notify the police, and by that time, when the police arrived, or if they did arrive, the offenders had already gone. So
Sure.
we actually removed the panic buttons to increase the speed of response. So no, we've removed panic buttons. There is some cool tech out there, and I encourage the retailers to look into this, where the push-to-talk radios have a duress button feature where you can actually link and let the other people connected to the push-to-talk network know that they're in trouble and where their location is. We're just exploring that technology at the moment.
We talked about how standard or some of the de-escalation protocols don't work for alcohol and drug impaired offenders. What are your controls in store for those type of offenders that may be causing CTS?
The full distance is our main push control mechanism that we push there. We lean on in-store security as well, where we have that available. And again, I think where there is drug or alcohol impaired customers, we really quickly escalate to local emergency services such as police to help us respond and remove that threat from store.
Yep. Now, it's really clear that while physical impacts of retail violence are evident, especially if they're machete driven, like you're saying there's a number of those, they're also less visible, but most likely a lot more proficient other injuries. Big question to you. What are the long-term mental health effects of customer aggression on your staff, especially young and maybe marginalized workers?
Yeah, it's an important question and an important thing that I think we need to all consider. Like any physical or high-risk CTS event, our learnings at Kmart Group is that we rely heavily on our EAP program. We've got a maturing psychosocial hazard program that we're even going to go harder on this year, just to raise awareness, particularly around the early indicators of when we're seeing stress points. So I'm not just talking about CTS or workplace violence. I'm talking about just day-to-day receiving deliveries, processing them, trying to sell them to our stores. From a Kmart Target perspective, we haven't seen a material increase in psychosocial or psychological claims as a result of customer threatening incidents. We rely heavily on our EAP provider to provide either on-site or follow-up calls to our impacted team members. We're finding that is effective. We're not perfect at it, but it's really an important tool in our toolkit. But a concept I wanted to introduce and put out there into the cohort is this concept of the continuum of mental health, right? And to the left, you'll see illness. And if you think about a high-risk CTS event and a team member that might have been directly impacted by, say, physical assault, they're obviously going to be down that end of the continuum. Where I think a lot of businesses try and play in the mental health space, it's where the team members are in that headspace. We've really lost the battle up front. Where we're trying to change and tweak our psychosocial program is let's target our team members. We're in the middle of the program, so whether it says health there, just think of that as you and I, right? So that's where we're on at every day of the cycle. How do we get people from the health of every day, but actually arm them with some proactive tools and some ways to deal with, high risk situations and make them resilient and move them into that wellness space ongoing. And, you think of things like, for us, those proactive sessions with our EAP provider when they are in health, getting them out to site and talking to them about not only just their mental well-being, but like they might be saving up for their first house in our stores, or they might be needing some legal assistance. Maybe they've got some problem with their landlord. I don't think a lot of our team members understand that our EAP program it's elite, right? There's so many availabilities that they can tap into. So probably my call out is for all businesses to think about this continuum and spend less time. Obviously, let's be reactive and support our team members when high risk things happen and they're in the illness phase. But let's try and, as a cohort, really focus on that health and wellness section. That's where we'll get our biggest bang for our buck.
Yep. Yeah, interesting. As safety professionals, obviously there's a limit of what you and your teams will be able to do. What's your process around actually ensuring there is a wraparound service across, after these events happen, to really provide good support where you understand it might be a gap in your or your team's abilities?
Well, as an example, every lockdown situation that happens in our stores, and our teams have become match fit. And I'll use that example because I love a bit of sport, right? I'm a Geelong Cats fan for any AFL supporter out there on the call today. When I say match fit, think about our teams are well trained, they understand the process, and they know what to do in those high risk scenarios. So we encourage them to lock down their stores, protect their teams and their customers. So I think it's important that every retailer is match fit when it comes to work to customer threatening situations. I've lost my train of thought. Sorry, Craig. Yeah, but yeah, I think that is the call out. I think is to encourage and be able to follow process quickly.
Yeah. When you talk about your cohort, and you've mentioned that a few times, and I'm assuming you're referring to your similar retailers out there that are in similar situations. Do you share strategies or measures with other retailers in areas where you're really focused on CTS issues? So it's a great point, Emma. So that offenders don't just shift to easier targets next door. I.e., is there a community approach across co-located retailers?
What an absolute brilliant question, and I think this is our unlock as a cohort of safety professionals, right? Kmart Group is part of the Wesfarmers family, which has Bunnings, Officeworks, Blackwoods, etc. We meet regularly and share ideas and our strategy. We're also connected into the ARA and the NRA, which is a brilliant resource, and where we really lean on those two cohorts for sharing ideas and escalating up to state and federal government.
The NRA not being the National Rifle Association, which would be yet another whole other problem. It's the National Retailers Association, I'm sure. I'm assuming.
That's right. And I use the example with the NRA. They did a recent review of our knife packaging across all the retailers, and they provided some really good insights to all the retailers around what's a good standard, what's an average standard, and based on that, we reviewed our packaging standard for all knives and sharps, so improved the edging or the edging around the knives. We made sure that the packaging didn't come, it included the handle. Basic things like that were like, oh God, such a good learning. Of course we should be doing that. So yeah, I would be reaching out to the ARA and Australian Retail Association and the National Retailers Association to get connected and get part of those working groups.
You talked about being match fit and making your stores a match fit. Great concept, great strategy. How do you check that your stores actually are match fit? So what's your auditing and your, in essence, compliance or best practice process?
We use a model where we do monthly safety activities. So within each of those activities, we will space up a different, it could be a risk assessment verification, it could be a self-audit. And based on those self-audits, we get the stores to self-assess. We then lean heavily on our operational safety field team that will do coaching and on-site inspections. But we're really fortunate to also have a business audit or an internal audit program, right, that can really assess and sense check competency of our teams. One of the recent opportunities we identified was at the front of all our stores, we have customer greeters, and they're elite humans, right, that are integral to not only identifying threats before they enter our store, but then also being one of the key stakeholders in de-escalating those scenarios. We found that the competency of that cohort needed an uplift. They were great, but we thought we could be even better. So we recently just launched an improved training and competency program that we're already seeing some immediate results as a result of that.
When you look at your employee base, you're going to have a huge range of part-time students to long-term retailers to, I'm sure, those that are looking for part-time job, but they're at the other end of their job career, their life. Do you find a real difference? You mentioned that there hasn't been a material increase in psychological claims as a result, but I'm sure you're getting a number. Are there different attitudes or acceptance of what okay looks like, depending on the type of worker, whether they are young or marginalized or of a particular culture?
I'll give you the example. When I think about the customer greeter example, the customer, we toyed with the idea, do we set a minimum age standard? You know, is it 18? Is it 20? Is it 30?
Mm-hmm.
But then you look back just as general humans, we're not all the same personality type, right? So an 18-year-old customer greeter could be more effective than a well-lived human that's in their 60s. So I think when you think about that concept, it's important to have really clear competencies in how you handle scenarios, and then make sure that they've got right equipment and training to execute.
Yeah, no, interesting.
The other thing I was going to add is one of our emerging risks at the moment. I think about the younger workforce, or accepting what is and what isn't okay. We're seeing a recent rise in customers being purposely disruptful in store. But then once that situation's escalating and our team members start responding to de-escalate, they will start to film our team members. So the context is missing, right? They're not filming
Yeah.
themselves being disruptful, but they're seeing the team member respond. So the mental health
Mm-hmm.
impact of that on our teams is something that we're really conscious of. And how do we make sure we're supporting our team?
Yep, no, exactly. As the levels of verbal threats have increased, has there been a decrease in staff reporting incidents as a result of these situations now, in essence, being considered, hey, it's just a normal part of my job? And then how do you keep encouraging staff to report incidents if their new normal has been created or has shifted?
Such a good question. And yes, is the short answer is, I think there is a new acceptance of what's tolerable in store
Mm.
for our cohort. I think the younger workforce do not accept the new norm, if we say that, and they're very strong reporters. We're
Also,
seeing
the new workers, they've got a better or a lower threshold of what they accept.
that's
Interesting.
right. Whereas our older workforce, I would say, and I'm just generally speaking, I'm not putting
Sure.
data behind this, but our older workforce maybe are a little bit more accepting
Mm.
and have a bit more life experience to de-escalate and take on some of that in the moment conflict that they're experiencing.
Mm. Regarding verbal CTS, so verbal customer threatening situations, if staff are reluctant to report, what would you recommend to other businesses who are accepting this, or sorry, who are um, experiencing this? What would you recommend to other businesses to encourage and improve reporting?
Yeah, good one. I think for us, we are seeing an increase in customer threatening situations, but what we're seeing is a decrease in our risk profile, right? So the
Mm.
more serious physical assault or weapons related events, they're coming down. It's the verbal assault, antisocial behaviour that's going up.
Yep.
Um, there is a well-known insight into our business that if the stores that report events are going to be included on our risk profiling sessions that is done each year, and based on that, they'll get improved investment at store levels.
Okay.
So there's a bit of a unsaid or unspoken rule that they will see improved investment or controls at their store if they're reporting more.
Can you share, and this has been a great chat so far, can you share any specific examples or case studies where safety design, so store layout, policy or culture, has influenced violence, whether up or down? So, and then how can retailers create environments that do de-escalate aggression and empower staff? And anyone that follows ecoPortal might have seen a blog that I launched this week on this very topic.
Yeah, one of the big learnings, we did multiple CTS pilot programs in the financial year that's just finished FY25, particularly post the Coles knife
Mm,
related incident that was absolutely horrific. We explored taking knives off show. We put the anti-theft devices on. We did the silent salesman. We improved the packaging as an example, and then we did a high risk profile where we threw everything at it, um, at those high risk stores, and we tried to measure, well, what works and what doesn't.
mm,
One of the big learnings we learnt was the front of store design, and use of our product displays, where we stand the customer greeter. I think that for us, we learn a lot through those pilot programs. So call out for, I would say, is depending on your business, I think you've got to pilot, consult, pilot more, and then you'll have some really good data insights. And again, you've got to be data driven, because if you're going to measure the impact of what you're doing, you've got to have a starting point, and then obviously you'll probably see a bit of an increase because you'll have team member awareness, but over time you should be seeing that decrease.
Yeah, interesting. Obviously, legislations across all our countries that are on the call today, it's very clear that any change to health and safety policies, procedures that will be affecting the health and safety of a worker needs to be consulted with those workers. Talk to me about, or tell me about how obviously you as a management team will have ideas, pilot processes and projects to roll out. What is your consultation process, and who do you speak to in store to get feedback and get their ideas about what good might look like?
We are blessed to have an army of our safety management system is called Safe Space. Our safety committees, we call them, they're our Safe Space Action Squads. So every site will have a Safe Space Action Squads, or the SAS as we call them. And they meet each quarter. What we do is as an example, they will feed up opportunities and things that are working in good management practices up to the state, and then we have an executive steer code that meets quarterly as well, right? So that is just BAU of how do we run our safety management system and business. Where we start thinking about introducing new tech or new processes, we will generally pilot those before we go live. So we might target a series of 5 to 10 stores. We will do a risk assessment and consult with those store teams as we're either piloting or we're planning on that pilot. So we found that is our most effective way. And again, pilot, get results, go live, and scale is how we generally roll our program.
Yeah, nice. No, fantastic. Mike, what do you personally believe? What role should the government or private security play in managing these rising crime threats in public-facing businesses?
They're essential, right? I talked earlier about drug, alcohol, and the homeless issue that we have in some of our stores. They're community-related issues that are impacting our stores and our team members. And I want to talk to one of our CBD stores in Victoria. There is a large number of drug and alcohol impacted customers that are into that store. There's 2 entrances. Ironically, it's about 3 doors down from the local police station. Just by having local police presence walk through our stores and go get a coffee makes a material impact on those repeat offenders or those opportunistic offenders. We've gone hard on local, states and federal, but also council engagement. And I've got to take my hat off to the Melbourne CBD Council. They've got some phenomenal resources available. So where our store reaches out directly to the council is able to contact them at quick measure. And it's surprising at how often the council will already know the potential offenders and will be able to support them from a community perspective, right? So
yeah, interesting.
If they're homeless, we'll get them the right support in general, and not only reduce the risk in our store, but make a better difference for that particular customer's life as well.
Yeah, interesting.
I think for our high risk stores, you'll find that we'll be connecting with every local police and council. And we'll just be making sure that we're fully aligned, we're meeting regularly, and we're sharing what trends that we're seeing. And then I think that is how we'll get results, is how do we tap into some of those community resources and make sure that we're maximising them to reduce risk across just our general community.
Yeah. And you may have touched on it earlier on in terms of, have you seen a lack of police response or attendance when team members have called in response to an incident, particularly in a problematic region or where police resources may be low? And then if there is that lack of response, what actions were implemented to try and overcome this particular issue?
I think in retail, we have the problem, right, where we have high volume and not always high risk. So the impact to our team members we could be perceiving as high risk, but when you overlay that with some of the community issues that the police might be dealing with, the retail violence might be pegged down the priority list. So I wouldn't be confident saying 100%. Yes, we've seen a lack of response from police, but sometimes we do see police unable to attend some of our call outs. So where we sort of rely on in those scenarios is back to our process. So it's got to be absolute discipline to our customers threatening situations program, offering EAP post the event, incident reporting, use the Aura platform where it exists, and then importantly sharing the learnings with both local police, council, and the broader business.
Yeah, no, for sure. The final sort of formal question: how do you believe that culture and leadership influence whether they influence whether safety policies are trusted, whether they're followed, and then lived and breathed on the retail floor? It's a big question to sort of end on, but yeah, it's an interesting one.
It's a good question, and I'm probably taking the assumption here that all retailers, right, we're people-led business, which when I say that, I mean that safety culture and performance is generally going to be led through management, and where you get to unicorn sort of safety culture status is where team members are really taking personal accountability for themselves and their peers. I think for Kmart Group and Wesfarmers, that concept of having mature safety management systems that evolve, learn, and share learnings is really important. For us, where we'll be turning on, so our new consolidated safety management system is a real milestone for Kmart Target. We'll be turning that on formally from March next year. What we'll be seeing now is we've got 8 digital electronic platforms that will be consolidated into one, and we'll be moving that into the ecoPortal platform. What that is going to create for our store teams is obviously efficiencies at store level, but it's going to be our one-stop shop for safety, right? So there is a massive opportunity for AI. We'll be using the AI assistant. So in our retail stores, we have our PDT devices, which kind of look like a phone or a scanner. We'll be turning on our AI assistant for that, which I think, for the average competency of our team members, where they might not know something, having me able to the AI assistant give you that immediate answer is a massive game changer. You kind of mix all that together, right? And where team members and management see that they've got a great safety program, they're seeing improved safety results, there's trust. And they go harder and they believe in the safety program and processes. So I think it's a bit of an evolution of wheelhouse.
No, amazing. Mike, thank you so much for this incredibly insightful conversation. Mike, obviously Kmart Target stores, you got a controlled, defined perimeter. What suggestions would you offer a retailer who have a staff footprint in a pop-up style sites, like in a shopping mall where the retailer is in the middle of the mall thoroughfare with limited physical security controls and infrastructure?
Great question. It's a tough environment, right, to try and manage, and I think you'd almost have to consider your pop-up as the box. So using physical pop-up displays, might be promoting your brand or whatever the product or event is, I think is really useful. I go back to target hardening the front of our stores. What we learned is by using those physical objects to create space and distance, and having a path for team members to create that space or step around. I think that is essential.
When there's Alistair asks, when there is an AAO incident within the area of a centre, I assume that means armed offender potentially, relating to incident reporting and recording. Do you record all instances if within the boundary of the shopping centre holistically, or more so if it directly impacts in close vicinity to the line of Kmart?
We had an event recently in one of our shopping centres where a car drove through the actual shopping centre. There was no impact to our 2 stores that were in that shopping centre, but we reported it as an event that happened, and we escalated that across the business so everyone knew what had happened. So yeah, we will still capture that. Absolutely.
Yeah. In what ways, I mean, you may have mentioned those already, but in terms of other engineering controls, which, and ask the question, in which ways are you considering engineering controls, such as strong physical barriers between staff and customers where possible? Or are you moving away? A lot of banks have moved away from their engineering control and actually have obviously gone like cashless, for example, to remove that risk. Any other engineering controls that you've implemented at stores or other locations?
There's a real science. I don't want to give away too much here, but when you enter one of our stores, there's a real science around how do we engage the customer's mind and what path of travel they'll take as they walk into the store and progress around.
Mhm.
We lean in on that science a little bit, and I spoke earlier about how we're piloting the use of front of store gates.
Mhm.
We're not sure where that is going to go, but we are seeing some of the other retailers move down that path, right?
Mm.
So it'll be interesting when you overlay that, our public display monitors that have the link to the CCTV footage, and changing the way that our customers will move through the store. They're the kind of
Mm.
things that we're
Mm.
trying to think a little bit differently about how do we control that risk.
Mm. Does the trespass system work as a system? Sorry, does trespass work as a system for Kmart? Obviously, it's difficult to have staff and security enforce this given the number of people that do visit, but it is an avenue that's used in many facilities. Have you had any success in that space?
We're inconsistent. I don't think we're match fit when it comes to that concept. I think we've got a long way to go to improve our processes and be better at that. We have seen some wins, but it is an opportunity
Mm.
for us. So short answer is really back that concept in, but we need to be better as a Kmart group business.
You talked about train stations being included in your score on risk assessments. Are there any other location related things that are red flags? And maybe conversely, what works in your favor might be a lovely park outside that only encourages good people to go, for example.
Yeah, I think just the concept of who are your problem demographic that are coming into your stores and causing your CTS. So understanding that data is super important, I think, as a starting point. We consider the train line concept for youths under 18, where they're using public transport to get from location to location. So that's where we really
Mm.
think about how do we do improved controls for that demographic. Um, the other things that you think about are drug, alcohol, rehab centres or pubs and clubs. For us, we're late traders, so where we're in close
Mm.
proximity to a pub, you're going to assume that you're going to have some intoxicated customers that might come to your stores. So how do you sort of proof harden your stores and team members to defend that if those incidents escalate?
Emma asks, when recruiting, Mike, what do you look for, or do you look for resilience in this area in terms of managing CTS, or do you simply plan to develop the skills and capabilities?
We're fortunate, right, that we our recruitment tool leverages AI. So we've built into our AI model the perfect team member, as you will. So there's some general characteristics of what we would like to see in a team member. What that does is help promote and push those team members through the recruiting system. We obviously onboard and recruit a high number of team members, right, particularly over that peak trade
Sure.
period.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
it's a bit of a blend of we want to take the best of the best, but we also need to make sure we've got a strong workforce. So it's a bit of a dual model. Concept is we will take anyone and we will make sure that we train them and keep them safe and give them the skill sets, not only for being a Kmart Target, but how do you be safe just in general in your own life and take away some of those learnings.
Probably got time for another one or two questions. Apologies, I won't be able to get to all of them. They're still flooding in. Just came out in terms of your what do you call them? Your SAS, your safety squads in store. Are these? Do you encourage the election of health and safety reps, and then providing, and then those reps, are they undertaking good amount of training, external, the 5-day regulator approved training, or are they mainly managed by the training in house? What's your process about finding the people to join those squads?
Yeah, we do internal reviews of our constitution, and then also like we put out opportunities for our team members to join the SAS squads. For us, I go back to my previous comment, the concept of consulting and asking the team members for their feedback, not only on our safety management system, but some of the things that we're seeing as trends, and we put through those committees as problems to solve, right? So not everything has to be side up. It could be national down as well, about how do we solve some bigger trends. So so the HSR question, we don't do the HSR training. We're not competent or qualified. We lean on external resources to help us do that training.
Yeah, awesome. Fantastic. Well, Mike, that is a wrap. Thank you so much for sharing your time and expertise. We really hope you're leaving with some useful insights on how to build those safer public-facing workplaces for your staff, for your customers, and for your brand. Michael, I'll give you the floor for your last farewell.
Just a massive thank you, Craig, on behalf of the ecoPortal team for having me. We don't claim to be the experts in workplace violence, but really happy to share what we're doing and what we're seeing as an opportunities for improvement. So, but no, thank you for having me, and thanks everyone for dialing in.
Until next time, everyone, take care, stay safe. See you next time. Thank you for listening to safetyCast. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and share with your colleagues, because safety knowledge is meant to be shared. Stay safe, stay engaged, and be sure to catch our next episode for more expert insights. See you then.